Right, we wanted to get stuck into a couple of football talking points. Of course, in an alternate universe, Ireland will be playing against Turkey tomorrow night, or against some team anyway.
Don't do it to yourself.
Yeah,
don't do it to yourself.
Don't think about it.
Listen, the world #1 team are coming to town. We couldn't be more excited.
Exactly, the world #1 team with all their caps are in Dublin this weekend.
They're not actually. It's the opposite. They've left all their caps at home.
Yeah. It's on a scale of 1 to 10. How excited are you for the return of Republic of Ireland football again? Because it feels there's been a buzz even around friendlies up until this point for the last couple of years.
There is, but I don't know if you go through a similar sensation when it comes to Irish football, where the games tend to creep up on you because it's this relentlessness of the Premier League. And even when it comes to qualifiers, I wouldn't say I don't get massively excited, but until the day of the game, you're listening to the press conferences. There's not a huge amount interesting in them quite often, but it's the fallout. There's every possibility next Monday, even though it's a friendly against Belgium. Belgium will turn up and will expect to win this game, that we're wondering how we can't beat a second-string Belgium team. Looking at the Irish football of the last 20 years, why we haven't been producing players like Belgium, how can we follow the Belgium model, and we'll do this massive deep dive over the next week, and then we'll sort of return to normality again at the Premier League. And that's the cycle of international football. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's just such a shame that we're a year away from the start of the European Championship qualifiers. I'm the #1 advocate of the Nations League, and that the games are important, but we don't know what is going to come in June, whether we'll have any games, whether we'll have 4 games in the space of 10 days or 2 weeks. It's totally up in the air right now. So these games, they're good to keep momentum. There's obviously huge interest. They're talking about 48,000 tickets sold for a friendly. That is absolutely insane. There's barely any other country in world football who's selling 48,000 tickets for a friendly when you haven't qualified for a major tournament and you're not in the build-up to something. So there clearly is a buzz. There's no doubt that there's something going on around Irish football, that people are buying into this, and exciting to see this team. And even the fact that Belgium aren't bringing De Bruyne and Lukaku and Hazard, they still want to go and they want to get behind this Irish side. Maybe it's COVID, maybe it's getting back out, but I think that'll create something. You can't not feel like it's an important game on Saturday if there's a sellout crowd.
Well, they should advertise it around Hazard and just not reveal the first name of the Hazard that's going to be in town, and just say, come watch Hazard.
Well, it reminds me of when I was asked to voice the advertising campaign for the Carling Nations Cup, and basically I had to start with the name of a player. So it was Bale, Keane, I'm trying to think who else played, Evans. And it turned out none of these players were being selected when it came down to it for the Carling Nations Cup.
What we're going to do this morning is we're going to try and get into the head of Stephen Kenny, and no better man to do that than Nathan Murphy, who sits through every press conference. And
love that man.
So you're going to give us a full preview of what his first choice 11 is going to be. So how are we picking this team this morning?
So I think this will be the team that starts against Belgium on Saturday, and I think it'll be very close to the team that starts whatever the first Nations League game is come June. And I would expect that what he'll do this week is go out all guns blazing against Belgium, because they are the world #1. You beat them, there's huge world ranking points. And then Lithuania is the match where he'll do a little bit of experimenting. So I think Saturday, Gavin Bazunu will be in goal. I think Gavin Bazunu will stay in goal until something changes dramatically at club level, and that could happen quite quickly.
20 years' time, he'll be still starting for Ireland.
I don't go along with that this is a done deal. Mark Travers was up in front of the media, and were every possibility come March, this time next year, that he has a full season of Premier League behind him. And where are Caoimhín Kelleher, where are Gavin Bazunu? It's totally out of our hands, it's totally out of Stephen Kenny's hands. But until something happens and Bazunu isn't playing first-team football and one of the others is at a high level all the time, I think Bazunu will stay in goal, and deservedly so. He's been absolutely outstanding and is so integral to the way Ireland want to play. So I think that's set in stone. Our defence is interesting. At the moment, with Bamidele out and Darragh O'Shea just returning, I'd expect he'll stick with that back three of Seamus Coleman, Shane Duffy and John Egan. We do have options there with Bamidele and Darragh O'Shea heading towards the summer, and maybe one of them, if they can get a long run of games in the first team, which looks unlikely for Bamidele, they can force their way in, which would mean a little bit of a reshuffle where you'd put Coleman at right wing back and you might put Doherty to left wing back. But for this weekend, and maybe he settled on it after the last 2 internationals, that actually Matt Doherty's at his best. Matt Doherty started more games under Stephen Kenny than anybody else. He's playing at the highest level of any outfield player he looks like he's in absolutely smashing form, and I think he's actually done quite well at times under Stephen Kenny. I know he gets
done
a lot
really
of
well
stick.
under Stephen Kenny.
Yeah, he gets much like himself and Jeff Hendrick are two players. I think because of their demeanour, Matt Doherty never looks like he gives a damn about anything. But anyone you talk to who knows Matt Doherty says he does. He absolutely does. But we like our Irish players to be full of blood and guts and to show it. Tears during the anthem is what we look for, and I don't think that's ever going to be Matt Doherty. But his best performances have been over the last 18 months, either on the right-hand side or the left-hand side. So I don't think there's a huge debate at the moment about that back three with the other players. But if you look at a depth chart, if you were looking at a depth chart, Darragh O'Shea, Andrew Bamidele and Nathan Collins as your next three, and in 3 years' time being your three centre halves, that's pretty exciting.
We're in a great nick at centre back. Doherty's a funny one. He's a type of player. If you go to the games, and one of the games I was fairly close to touchline. I was kind of at his touchline. You really see how comfortable he is. It's just his body language. He's really, really. Everything comes so easy to him. It really struck me how he just made it look easy, and I'm delighted that he's got a run of games. I don't see Coleman playing wing back again at all, to be honest.
Just about to ask, I was like, it does feel that there are certain elements of that back three where the stock isn't as high as it was before Christmas.
He's not. Seamus Coleman. There go the lights. Seamus Coleman.
Oh.
He doesn't have the.
When you start talking about Seamus Coleman in a potentially negative way, he will strike down upon you.
He doesn't have the pace for right wing back anymore. So it's.
I think I look quite good in the dark. It suits me.
So yeah, I'd. What about left wing back then?
What about left wing back?
Well, you picked McLean.
So this weekend McLean will start. Enda Stevens is injured. He did throw Enda Stevens straight back in against Portugal last time out, which would suggest that he still feels that Stevens is the best option there. McLean, I know it's at League One, so it's hard to say he's in the form of his career because he did it for a consistent period at Premier League level. But he's having a mighty good time of it with Wigan at the moment. Looks like he's enjoying his football. Kenny again, I think, likes the energy. He maybe doesn't offer quite as much an attack as he once did, but I think can provide the cover, and his fitness. His fitness regime is insane. The level that he's still at 31. So I don't see Ryan Manning really forcing his way in there right now. Maybe he gets an opportunity in the friendly against Lithuania, but it's probably Stevens, maybe Doherty if he decided to go with Coleman again at right wing back, and McLean are the three at the moment, with McLean this weekend with Stevens out injured getting the opportunity.
Joel Bagan is interesting going forward. Manning's not even playing left wing back for his club. That's the problem as well. I'm not sure he really has the pace to make that position his own, unfortunately.
And the chances Manning's had with the Ireland team, I know they've been few and far between, really hasn't worked out for him. He hasn't grabbed it with both hands. So, I think McLean, again, a player who can divide opinion, but, has put the head down. I think has been a lot more solid over the last couple of years. And because he's doing so well at club level, I think he'll be in.
Can we talk about that midfield then, Hendrick and Cullen? We can see them up on screen there. That's the midfield that you think Stephen Kenny's going to go with. It's obviously been something that's worked quite well at times over the last little while in terms of their form over the last little while outside of the Ireland camp. How have they been going?
Well, Josh Cullen's playing on a regular basis. Obviously, we had him on the show just before Christmas, playing over in Belgium and doing well under Vincent Kompany. He goes with Conor Howerhan in the middle of midfield. I don't think Jason Malumbi is ready to play international football in the middle of midfield. Howerhan is definitely next in line right now and is, in and around that first team at Sheffield United. But Hendrick has been one of Kenny's best players. He always picks him. Again, somebody who gets hammered consistently, and I don't see it a lot of the time as to what the criticism is.
He's definitely been better under Kenny.
He's been better under Kenny, and after Euro 2016. But even under Kenny, he's been getting a lot of stick. But that system seems to suit him. Maybe the system in itself is a talking point. Now that Anthony Barry is gone, it does seem Anthony Barry was a very influential voice in that move to a 3-4-3. I'm not sure John Eustace will have the same impact. Stephen Kenny was in his press conference yesterday was asked about the appointment. He was also asked, I don't know if you saw the quotes of he had basically hammered English coaches a couple of years ago. At first denied that he had said this, then sort of tried to move on quite swiftly.
But his comments about changing to 3 at the back after the England game, I thought were interesting. In that when he had that recent press conference where it was more so. Well, this wasn't really an Anthony Barry thing. This was something that I decided after we were so poor against England. I think there might be a small bit of historic revisionism there. It's like, well, we're moving on from Anthony Barry here.
Yeah.
There is, and no manager in the world is going to sit there and say, yeah, my assistant coach is the genius here.
We are going to need to
get
just take a quick break here. We could just put on our phones and I guess actually see how that actually works.
Like
but that's just a little bit haunting, isn't it? Stephen Kisby Green in our team says this brings a whole new meaning to Nathan's League of Ireland After Dark, and he's not wrong.
League of Ireland Late Night, I'll let you know. It'd be a bit more like that if myself and Johnny had a glass of wine in the corner, I think.
At 7:30 in the morning. And we are thinking of going on Tuesday.
We're going to go.
We're
back. Look at
we
this.
do not need to take a break. Richard Redballs has been in touch to say Ger Gilroy coming into the office dresses the Undertaker again, which is possibly true. It looks like we're good.
We're back. I think we are back.
We're almost a bit bright now.
We can keep.
Yeah, we are going to be. League of Ireland Late Night is going to have a special international flavour next Tuesday night. We're going to be on after the Lithuania game.
So what are you going to call that then? Republic of Ireland Late Night?
Stephen Kenny Late Night.
Kenny Late Night. Bring us on to the front three then, Nathan.
Yeah, I think this is another area, much like the defence, where we have options, maybe not quite at the level I think we have options defensively. So the three I think he will go with this time on Saturday are Jason Knight, Chidozie Ogbene, behind Callum Robinson, no Adamida. The Jamie Mcgrath story, it sort of got passed over when the squad was announced. The fact that Jamie Mcgrath is not in the squad is pretty shocking. Jamie Mcgrath started both games against Portugal, started the last match against Serbia. He looked like a player who was, if he wasn't in that first choice 11, he was player number 12 and was always going to be making some sort of an impact. So I assumed when I saw the squad and he wasn't there that there'd be some sort of a niggly injury, and understanding he hadn't been playing any football at all at Wigan, but you felt that Stephen Kenny, while club football was important, he felt he had a player in Jamie Mcgrath who could really do a job for him and was very important to the system he wanted to play. But Kenny has said this week that it's basically he hasn't played any football. It's remarkable that he has gone from a position where he was so highly rated up at St Mirren to signing for Wigan and can't even make the first team squad.
Any idea what's happened there?
Well, they're flying, seems to be the main thing. So Wigan are playing well. They're not changing their team. Whether there's something else going on that he can't even make the first team squad, I'm not quite sure about. But Kenny's viewpoint on it is that you've got to assume he's not going to make the first team squad between now and the end of the season. So can I go into the Nations League in June with a player who basically hasn't played in 6 months, and he feels with Jamie Mcgrath he can't? Now maybe there's a message been sent out to other players of choose your moves if you're going to go and take
that would be very harsh
where you're not going to play. But we had Jim Goodwin on not long before he left St Mirren and not long before Jamie Mcgrath left St Mirren, and he really wasn't happy with how it was all being dealt with and felt that Jamie Mcgrath was getting bad advice, that he should stay at the club for the next 6 months, take his move during the summer, but that he's playing the best football of his career. There was obviously a lot of speculation that he would have gone to Aberdeen at the time that seemed to be denied by the club. But it does seem that Jim Goodwin was right. Wigan was not the destination. Whatever guarantees he got, whatever was put on the table, to end up in a position at 25 where you're not even making the squad, and at 6 months where it felt like he was about to catapult to this whole other level, to not play any football is incredibly frustrating. And that does change the dynamic. It opens up a spot.
Then you've Conor Ronan, who is at St Mirren, flying it who
I'd expect will get some game time, certainly on Tuesday night against Lithuania. Adamida not being there means I think Robinson will lead the line. There is a possibility he puts Will Keane in there to lead the line and again plays Robinson's slightly deeper role. But Jason Knight is the one who will come in, I'd expect, and replace Jamie Mcgrath. And Jamie Mcgrath may never get that place back now.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It might be the death knell for potential for his international career.
Well, the last game was the match over in Luxembourg where Jason Knight came off the bench and turned the game. The 3 goals all as a result of his impact. So this is his opportunity now. He's back. He's fit. He's obviously had his injury problems before the last international break. So you would hope that Jason Knight takes this opportunity and comes in and does make it his own, and actually we don't need to have this debate. Ogbene is clearly a player that Stephen Kenny likes and the supporters love, and brings an energy and sort of gets you off your seat, so I think he'll keep his place as well. And Robinson obviously is almost one of the first choice players, whether that's as the number 9 or slightly deeper. But I think that's a good, strong team. I think we need to be realistic in terms of still the way we're talking about them, considering the level that a lot of these players are at. But it does seem as though there's a sort of stability in the system and almost in the first choice 11.
We probably take it for granted how strong the standard is at the top of League One as well, like, and how difficult it is for some players. Like St Mirren to Wigan is not necessarily a straightforward path. Like you look at Georgie Kelly as well going to Rotherham, not happening for him at all, like at the moment. So it can be a very good level.
It seems so random to me at the same time. Like it did feel that before Christmas when Ogbene was flying for Ireland, it was like, well, this guy's clearly good enough for Championship, for like the top half of the Championship. And if you had said to me Jamie Mcgrath is not going to be able to get into a squad at the same level that Ogbene is currently playing, I'm like, how is that even possible? Like it is just so strange how this has happened to Mcgrath. And maybe it is just that we're underrating how good either Ogbene is or how high the standard is at the top of League One. But is it too green tinted glasses to suggest that Jamie Mcgrath and what we've seen of him at St Mirren and out of Ireland should be getting into a League One squad?
I don't know what style like Wigan play necessarily and how that would suit Jim McGrath. Whereas Ogbene, it's fairly straightforward the way he plays. And like St Mirren, the SPL, if you take out Celtic and Rangers, like the standard is completely different, even to probably the top of League One. Like resources and wages and everything else. So like. I don't know, it's a different, like Jim, I have to say I was very surprised at how well James McGrath did, because I didn't really see it in the League of Ireland that he was as good as he looked for Ireland, and he's had some very good performances for Ireland, whereas with the likes of Conor Ronan, you could see with the 21s, this lad's really, really talented. But I think what Nathan's touching on there in terms of you have to make the right move as well, and it just sounds like he did not. And, you look at Obafemi, and the chat was that, like, well, his agent has relayed that he doesn't see himself as a 21 player, and whoever's advising you, it is important as well. Can
I just ask then, just to finish up on that team sheet, Jason Knight, obviously we just put it up on screen there, the graphic is on the left of a front three. He obviously drops deep in front of the midfield, but he can also play out on the left of a front three, can he? Or do you think, obviously...
I think it'll be more a 3-4-2-1. With, as you say, Knight dropping. Knight probably the one who'll drop deeper at times. Ogbene the one who'll push up and support Robinson at times. But the great thing about watching Ireland in the last couple of games was the rotation.
Yeah,
you look at a couple of the goals they scored, but also when I was at a beginners coaching course last week, and they were showing clips.
Did you go to a coaching course?
Yeah,
that's a good. That's something I've often thought about doing.
Not for this job, for my actual coaching career.
Johnny. Oh, okay.
The underrates deserve the best in this country, Johnny.
It's not for a better knowledge of the game per se. It's more that you've coaching ambitions yourself.
Well, exactly. Listen,
you're bred for the job.
Stephen Kenny has given us all an ambition of we can achieve something in Irish football now. But they were showing lots of different clips within it of. Listen, it's way above that level, but of. Good attacking Irish play and transitions and things like that, and some of the football and some of the movement at times was just exceptional. And I think that's what's most exciting, that these players seem to understand the system. And as I said, I do think Ogbene and Knight will play slightly deeper than whoever the number 9 is, whether that's Robinson or maybe Will Keane comes in, who at times actually is playing a bit deeper in Wigan himself. I think. It's Belgium. It'll be interesting to see.
I think you're touching a good point though, because Belgium are already coming as a team that are obviously, as you alluded to, they're missing their main players. So it's a bit of a perfect storm for this to go badly for Ireland, because Ireland have some players that you're like, well, like the likes of Hendrick, for example, no idea what form he's in. Seamus Coleman has had some really poor games for Everton. Even McLean, he's playing at Wigan, so, and then you're looking at our team and you're like, Belgium could have a very good night here, and we don't want that at all, because it would just completely interrupt the momentum that we've built up. So it's going to be a really interesting game, I think.
I don't see how it can be a bad thing from an Irish point of view that De Bruyne and Lukaku and those players aren't there, in that you might think, oh, well, maybe they're turning up here and they're going through the motions. They're thinking about Premier League and Champions League. But, you think back to 2016 and, that was a stronger Irish squad on paper, and how they ripped Ireland to pieces. the flip of that is that Belgium have a genuine chance of winning the World Cup in December, and the players who are coming here, a lot of them are trying to force their way either into the team or even into the 23. And these couple of matches that Belgium have are their one opportunity to say to Roberto Martinez, you got to pick me.
Totally, yeah.
So they're not going to be going, it'll be the opposite. These Belgian players, you can't imagine are going to be going through the motions at all. Like Benteke, Batshuayi, Origi, all in that squad. And there's a good chance all three of them don't make the final 23. So that'll be the worry. And as you're right, that the way it'll be framed is Ireland have been beaten by basically the second string Belgian side.
Yeah. When, they're going up against Yuri Tielemans in midfield.
Yeah, basically
who would be the best player in the Ireland squad.
I think the crowd being back though is such a boost for us. Like, there will be a really good atmosphere there. As Nathan says, the games I've been at as well, and basically games that were effectively dead rubbers. We spoke about it in contrast to the rugby yesterday, but there's a smashing atmosphere at Ireland games at the moment.
Yeah, there really is. And even when it was pre-COVID, as you mentioned there, for a couple of those home games that were like capacity within the restrictions, there was a real buzz in the stadium. There's one other thing we want to touch on here, Nathan, and it's 5 players with the most to gain in the coming months with Ireland. You've picked your top 5 here.
Yeah, we touched on some of these already, but I think Nathan Collins, with Bamidele out injured, I would expect that Collins will certainly start the second game against Lithuania, and he's a player who's stuck in that Sean Dyche rut where Tarkowski and me always start, but Tarkowski is going to leave during the summer. Hopefully they manage to stay in the Premier League, and if they do, he's going to be first choice. And the great thing then is when you're first choice under Sean Dyche, you'll play every single week. So Collins, every time he's played, I know he got sent off recently, but by and large he has looked comfortable at that level. He's a big man for a young guy, has a real presence about him. Again, I think he can force his way in there, because if Shane Duffy is another year, in a year's time, where does he go? Does he get football? Maybe there's an opportunity in the heart of that Irish defence for one of those 3. Will Keane could well start on Saturday. He's banging in the goals for Wigan. And a striker isn't something we really have. Somebody who's in form. He's heading for 30, but we've had, if you look at the Dave McGoldrick example of someone coming in later in their career, making an impact. So I think, again, with Mcgrath being out, Adamida being out, he's probably still maybe a step ahead of a Troy Parrott, unless Kenny's thinking, I'm going to just give Parrott more game time. But for the here and now, I think Will Keane might get a good few opportunities over the next year or so. Alan Brown's an interesting one. Alan Brown started the first 2 games of the World Cup qualifying campaign, then had several COVID issues and had several injury issues and didn't really feature, but is always in the squad whenever he's fit. Could fit in to one of those roles just behind the striker. Could maybe play in the midfield too as well. He's basically at the prime of his career. I think he turns 26 in the next few weeks. Playing at a good level at Preston, playing championship week in, week out. When I was thinking about Alan Brown, because I was comparing him to Jack Byrne recently. There's no League of Ireland players in this squad, and nobody's even mentioned it. Yet for decades we've hammered managers, yet somehow Stephen Kenny, the one man we thought would be all over it, hasn't selected any of them.
It's not really true. Most of the League of Ireland bashing was very League of Ireland biased, because it's rare that we've said, he should definitely be in the squad. We're talking about Evans,
Well, exactly, and I think actually most of those better League of Ireland players of the last couple of years have maybe gone abroad, and that's the way they'll have to go. And look, Jack Byrne's obviously not fully fit at the moment, so wasn't really in contention. But when we're talking about Jack Byrne getting in, Alan Brown is playing championship football every week and has done for 5-6 years at this stage. The night over in Slovakia when he came on and played the last hour, he was brilliant. So Brown is someone I wouldn't be surprised if he can actually stay fit, is another one who over the next couple of years becomes an integral part of the starting 11. Darragh O'Shea was clearly a player that Kenny loved. Picked up that horrible injury, is just working his way back to fitness. Again, probably not quite ready to start on Saturday, but seemed probably to be the top of those 3 of O'Shea, Bamidele and Collins. And I'd expect he'll get back there again and be in a position that maybe he takes Seamus Coleman's place, or certainly somebody's place. Over the next while. And then Jason Knight, I think, is clearly the one with the most to gain over the next while, with Mcgrath's absence, with the impact he made in that last half an hour in Ireland's last game. I really hope that he does grab it and that we can sort of settle on him as one of that first choice 11, and then see what happens with the summer as to where he ends up with Derby, because I think you got to assume he's going to go. I know Wayne Rooney was talking about Festia Bazele and not been too happy or too impressed that Ebazela decided to go to Italy, that he should have stayed in English football. He's already moved from Ireland to England, now he's moving from England to Italy. It's just going to confuse the lad.
He's definitely a lad that's going to be on that. He's going to be on your shortlist radar of players that are going to be on the up. Like he's for Ireland, he's just waiting to take off for them, I think.
Yeah, listen, maybe Wayne Rooney's a bit peeved that this has been announced mid-season or something, but and maybe he's right. Maybe we get too excited about Udinese, where if he signed for Sheffield United, we'd be going, well, yeah. We've already got players at Sheffield United.
Okay, can we just go through these comments now? Because I think this is fascinating. Like, and I think it's a good insight into maybe Wayne Rooney and English football as a whole. So on Festy, he said, "I said a few months ago he can be a superstar. He can be what he wants. He really needs to keep his focus, his concentration, and keep learning to develop." He mentions his pace and his powers, his attributes. If you're asking me, do I think it is the right move for him, then no, I don't. I think he should stay in England. Whether it is a move where he goes there to go back to England, obviously we know Udinese are a sister club to Watford. We don't know. I think he should have stayed in England, kept learning to play the game here, then he really has a chance. And it's always difficult for a young player to go abroad. Like, well, I mean, the young player has already gone abroad to England at this point. Like,
yeah, so. Evoking memories of Liam Brady here, that does annoy me. Like, you know, where England was a massive problem for Irish players going to a foreign country and couldn't settle at all. And like, it's not the same as like getting a 2-hour train ride here, you know. And no, the standards of the standards of Italian football are up for debate a bit. In fairness, it's not like, oh my God, Udinese. Like, Italian football is nowhere near what it was.
But it's not. I'd like the thing that would excite me about this move, for example, is not so much the standard; it's to do with the style of play. And I know we keep using Josh Cullen as the sort of single reason why Irish players should be going further afield in England, and it's not enough of a sample size whatsoever. But still, Josh Cullen went to Belgium and has made a pretty good career for himself, playing a brand of football that is conducive to how Stephen Kenny wants to play football. So I don't know. I think that this is, when I saw Udinese, it wasn't so much, oh, this is a team that we were in the Champions League 15 years ago, and this is fantastic. It's more to do with the fact that it's like interesting. There's going to be people bringing a different style of football into the Ireland camp,
totally,
as opposed to the very English/Irish or /Scottish style that predominantly exists within this playing group.
It's becoming a team as well where this is becoming fairly normal. I don't know if you've seen much from Nathan. Like at Derby, he's.
Yeah, the bits I've seen, he's looked really impressive.
He's totally explosive, like, and he's really, and apparently he's, you know, great attitude. You know, in terms of him versus Ogbeni, I'd imagine if you took an impartial manager, he would say, well, Baselli's doing it at Derby here. He's playing better than Ogbeni, I'd say, in some respects, but he obviously just has a little bit to go.
But I think this is just the start of it with Irish players, and it's exciting, and we may not see the full benefits of it for another 5 or 10 years, but we do need to move on from our obsession with English football. And the more young kids that go, the more to be normalised, and other young kids will think, actually, you know, well, Italy isn't as far away as it was in the 80s. You can get a flight home you can get a flight home now in 2 hours from Italy. You know, these are young, smart, educated kids who are probably far better positioned to learn the language, to settle in, and we want them playing European football. We want them playing Europa League football. Like, it is so noticeable. I've touched on this before, commentating on the Europa League, and every country around Europe being represented, with the exception of Irish players. And you go through, whether it's Slovenia or Estonia or Lithuania, any of those countries that we would see ourselves probably being a step above, their players feed into, whether it's the German league or the French league, and it doesn't need to be Paris Saint-Germain or Bayern Munich, but 4, 5, 6 teams from those countries end up playing in Europe, and they end up then getting that exposure to a different type of football in the Europa League and the Champions League, and our young players haven't had that for 20 years at this stage. So anything that brings more of those young guys to Italy, and Udinese is a good calibre. Like, it won't be a straightforward thing for them to even break into that team. You know, they've got a lot of internationals there at the moment. You know, they have that link with Watford, so maybe he goes there for a year and he comes back and he plays with Watford, who by then will probably be back in the Premier League, the way things go at Watford. So the more young players that go to Italy, that we'll probably move past the stage where we're unbelievably excited about somebody going to Inter Milan or AC Milan, because again, it's the same as them going to, you know, almost Liverpool or Tottenham or somewhere. There's no guarantee. It's like a Troy Parrott going to Spurs. There's no guarantee they're going to make it there, but at least...
Who goes further, him or Abankwah? Yeah, Bank was a centre back, which might make it easier in some respects.
Yeah, Parrott already has a full season, I guess, of men's football under his belt now. It doesn't feel as though Parrott's going to make it at Tottenham.
I meant like Ebosele or a Mcgrath, sorry.
I think Ebosele at this stage, he has that full year of first team football, but like, isn't it great that we're talking about several of these players, and Zeffy and Cathal Heffernan going over, Josh Cullen. Like, you'd love some of those Irish players actually in their mid-20s to think, do I want to sit in a bench in the Premier League or the Championship, or would I go off and play in Belgium and play Europa League football as a part of that? Like, that'd be a great position to get to. Probably will never get to that, but because of the money involved.
The flip side of the comments as well from Wayne Rooney, and I know that he's been he's kind of entrenched himself as a legend of Derby County this season, but these guys are trying to carve out a career and looking at a club who have got fewer points than everybody else in the division, more games played than the teams that are battling for relegation. Derby County are going down, and when they go down, they're a club that's in a lot of trouble. If you're Festy and you're looking around, granted you've got a fantastic manager who looks like he's doing a brilliant job. I mean, you want to jump ship, and if you want to improve your career and you want to keep playing at that level, so I absolutely can. I'm not. While I fully respect Wayne Rooney, I think he's done a brilliant job as a manager so far. I don't know about these comments.
Maybe Wayne Rooney's right. He sees him in training every day. Maybe he looks at his style and thinks he is perfectly suited to a top championship team or a mid-ranking Premier League side.
In fairness to them,
maybe he looks at his personality and says, you know what, I think this kid might struggle over in Italy when he's away from his mates. But he's England. He's been just fine.
That doesn't seem to be the case either. But I don't know. It's like we're talking about this, the normalisation of kids going to like Italy now and stuff. How great is that?
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true.
I think the different sort of DNA of the Irish players coming up is attracting, clubs as well. Like the your Glory as well from Pats. And the Kevin Zeffy, I think his family may even have moved over to Italy. Like, so it's slightly different, and it's probably not as big of a deal as, like, I think for a lot of Irish players, this idea of going to a non-English speaking country was just like not even in their head. But I think this is normalising it a lot, and just hopefully now some of these moves work out, and we'll see every Saturday we'll be talking about James Abankwah or Ebosele, how well they're doing. We'll be back watching Italian football again.
Yeah, for sure. Very quickly, Nathan, before we finish up, you were at the Troy Parrott press conference the other day. Any nuggets to bring us?
A newfound maturity from Troy Parrott was the message that he clearly was trying to get out there. Said he had a little bit of an awakening over the last season, maybe even at a time when he had a dip in form at MK Dons, where he was starting to struggle to make the team there, that he realised you only get one shot at this. As Eminem said, you only get one shot, and Troy has realised that. So said that
you kind of get several shots, though, don't you? I mean,
that's the great thing about football. You think you're gone, but then somebody else will pick you up. And you can start at the bottom and work yourself back up. But listen, he spoke. He's still a very young guy. He's only 20. We sort of expect a huge amount from Troy Parrott, and I guess he's had to learn a lot. Like down in League One, it's a tough old gig, week in, week out, twice a week. You got to perform. So yeah, he certainly spoke like a young man who realised that. 2.5 years ago, everyone thought he's on the verge of breaking into the Tottenham team. He's the next Harry Kane, and I'm sure he bought into that a little bit as well, that it's going to be a longer road. And said that he's acting differently on the pitch, acting differently off the pitch, making sure he's primed whenever he's on the pitch, that he's in the best possible shape and all that. So said all the right things. You just hope now he can kick on. He'll be going back to Spurs during the summer for pre-season. You expect another loan move unless Antonio Conte sees something he likes and maybe puts him up as one of the backups for Harry Kane or whoever the striker is there. But we saw what Tottenham did in January, the amount of money they spent there, and Conte wasn't happy with that. So you can expect they're going to spend a hell of a lot of money during the summer, and it's really hard to see Troy Parrott breaking in.
The weird thing briefly is like Obafemi and perhaps Connolly, but certainly Obafemi should be in the squad on form. Like, so it's
both of them should be in the squad on form.
Our striker options on paper are not that bad. Like, they're not as bad as they actually look.
But is it the right thing to do from Stephen Kenny when Obafemi?
I don't think it is.
Well, why?
Oh, sorry, I agree with Stephen Kenny. I'm like, well, if you're not turning off the 21s, like...
Yeah, and if he is carrying
maybe he does have that
injuries,
injury
and likewise with Aaron Connolly, like, there've been question marks about his attitude, both at club level, at international level. Like, get your head together, get yourself right, and show that you need to be there. And same with Michael Obafemi, and it'd be brilliant if in a year's time both of them have sorted out all of that and want to come in and want to be a part of the squad and accept that you're not always going to be first choice and work your way in. Because again, much like, as we say, Jamie Mcgrath suddenly dropping down, like, neither of these players can expect to come in now and just suddenly be first choice. Like, Adam Ida is ahead of them. Like, Will Keane is probably ahead of them. So, and looking at their true personalities and what we've seen and heard from them so far, are they going to be able to cope with that?
I don't know. I see you as a coach now rather than a journalist, Nathan. You just changed the
How many badges have you got?
Yeah.
They
Show me your
actually give you
badges. Show me your badges, yeah.
I can give you badges. It's a terrible shame.
Terry's been in touch to say, I live in Belgium. Friends here expecting an easy 3 or 4-0 win. They expect the same Ireland as in 2016. I give them a nice knowing wink saying, we will surprise you. This is a different Ireland. And also,
God, all we need is them to say they play a very British style of football.
And also, James has been in touch to say, I remember the triathlon banter well from a few years ago. Owen was a disgrace. Yes, I was, James, and I don't plan on changing that anytime soon.
That's the
quick
spirit.
tweet here from Phil. Today's OTB AM will be presented by 3 actors to protect the identity of the real presenters. The lights are back. Nathan Murphy is leaving us. Thank you, Nathan.
Thank you, gentlemen.
We are chatting GEA with Cara O'Kane next.